2014, Flint, Michigan has been synonymous with tainted water. 5 years on, city officials are still struggling to make the water safe for all its residents.
Содан кейін теңіз уже соғыста теңіз 60 жылдан бастап теңіз кетіп жатыр ғой, оны ешкім білген жоқ. Последний раз 1977-78.
Аралдың жағдайын бұл кезде ешкім ойлаған жоқ. Бұл кеуіп қалада осындай катастрофа, экологический жағдайға ұшырайды деп бұл кезде ешкім ойлаған жоқ.
As a result of the Anthropocene, communities all over the world have become engulfed by environmental disasters. Exposure to toxic chemicals, oil spills, wildfires, and explosions are just a few of the hazards that can come with living in the modern world. For some, this entails protesting and fighting for access to basic human rights and living conditions. And for others, this means no longer being able to live in the place that they once called home.
Esa es la historia del Río Nuevo. Ahora ya no se puede decir Río Nuevo. Ahora es drenaje, se puede decir. Deben de quitarle el nombre de Río Nuevo. No es río, es drenaje.
Todos los químicos, todos los desechos que vienen de fábricas de allá de Mexicali. No sé específicamente, yo no te puedo decir qué contiene, porque no lo sé. Pero de que son químicos perjudiciales a la salud, estoy 100% segura.
I grew up in a small border town in the southeast corner of California called El Centro. Around me were 3 other cities and a few smaller towns, all making up what is known as the Imperial Valley, home to a population of about 175,000 individuals. Growing up here, there were many things that almost anyone could tell you. Either your parents, abuelos, abuelitos, or family members are from Mexico, dippy ducks that stay out of the canals, and most of our parents usually work in agriculture for the Imperial Irrigation District or for the county. Despite living here my whole life, it was not until my senior year of high school that my environmental science teacher shared with my class the story of the New River. It was at that point that I became aware of one of the worst environmental disasters in the state of California. The story went like this. The New River of California is a century-old transnational body of water that is routinely filled with an eclectic mix of pollution. In the late 1800s, when settlers tried to inhabit the Imperial Valley Desert, they quickly realized that life here would be impossible without establishing the proper irrigation systems first. For over a decade, settlers worked tirelessly to dredge a single canal from the Colorado River in Yuma to the Imperial Valley in California. This system would provide settlers with an annual allotment of 2 million acre-feet of water, all so that they would be able to inhabit the Imperial Valley. However, by the turn of the 20th century, they ran into issues which caused the system to become swollen due to a record-high amount of snow and rainfall entering the Colorado River. This caused a 2-year-long flood period that not only filled the irrigation canal, but also rebirthed the millennium-old system, including 2 lagoons that were once active. As a result of these floods, a river channel was created that starts at the Laguna Salada in the Mexicali Valley and empties into the Salton Sea. Today, this body of water is known as the New River, or El Río Nuevo. The caveat to creating a system that makes this community inhabitable is that it has in turn been used as a dump site for rotten sewage, agricultural chemicals, and industrial waste. During the summer of 2019, I conducted fieldwork over the span of 12 weeks within the 4 major cities throughout the Imperial Valley: Calexico, El Centro, Imperial, and Brawley. In each city, I conducted one-on-one interviews, did comparative analysis of the river at different zones, and collected surveys on environmental risk and environmental habits. Using these results as well as personal experience to fill in gaps and explain the cultural intricacies of my hometown, I determined that the population of the Imperial Valley, despite being routinely exposed to the system, had begun to delocalize environmental risk. Unlike most case studies of environmental degradation, the story of the New River is missing the swell of community awareness and outrage that spurs a movement for change. Environmental injustice is defined as when a particular social group is burdened with environmental hazards. And while the case can be made that this system is both hazardous and degraded, this research illuminated the bleak reality that the surrounding cities and their populations are completely unaware of the issues at hand, as well as the severity. To explain the phenomena of delocalization, I introduced 3 overarching frameworks that make sense of this happening: co-production of knowledge, communities in motion, and psychological distance. In sociology, your reality is determined by your own definition of the social and physical world around you. This constructive reality can be further manipulated by the negotiation and co-production of space by multiple groups. In this context, nature becomes a transformative space, bending at the will of different stakeholders and numerous social interactions. As a community, members begin to produce cultural and physical markers of their own individualized society. However, in some cases, the cultural norms of a group can lead to an omission of these communal connections. In this case, communities in motion negatively affect a society's ability to create physical or cultural markers. Psychological distance is a construct referring to the extent to which an object is removed from the self. This clarifies that despite the physical proximity to a system, it can remain absent from the psyche. In the Imperial Valley, exposure to information about the New River ranges drastically for everyone due to the mobile lifestyles and various means of knowledge acquisition. For this population, much of the community knowledge is distinctly produced by each city, and for those who have multiple ties or intertwined relationships, this is reflected in their distinct ideas or combinations of beliefs. One participant, Devin, in their late 50s, was exemplary of these phenomena. Growing up in Mexicali, Baja California, Mexico, near the bank of the New River, they often utilized the body of water for playing and swimming. But despite moving to the U.S. side of the border to Calexico, California, they recalled switching to canals but still using the river when accessible. In early adulthood, they moved to El Centro and later finally settled in the city of Imperial. They expressed that they felt more removed from the dangers of the river the further into the valley they resided, but images and quality reports show that conditions remain nearly the same. Like Devin, 42 of my 50 participants had lived in or identified with more than one city in the Imperial Valley, and 37 out of 50 had lived in Mexicali as children. Out of the 42 participants, 38 were simply born in another city, 25 commuted for work, 16 attended a different school, and 10 played sports for a different league. Of the 37 participants that were born in Mexicali, 11 claimed their parents or grandparents moved to find work or to be closer to their jobs. 31 had expressed that their parents moved for them to have access to better quality life and education, and 6 said that their parents moved for both. Unlike Devin, however, my research participants seemed mostly unaware of the system and the harm that it caused. For the populations of the Imperial Valley, proximity to the river has not been enough to avoid the psychological distancing of this system. 68% of my participants claim to spend time in nature. 100% claim to cross the border on an occasional, if not daily basis. And 53% claim to know about the waterways of the valley because they either worked in agriculture, were avid sports fishers, or zanjeros. But despite partaking in activities that place them in contact with the river, all but a few of my participants have knowingly been near or encountered this system. Out of the 50 interviews that I conducted, only 7 people had ever heard of the New River, and only 3 had engaged with the system or had information about it. This finding, that 94% of the population knew nothing about the degradation their community faced, corroborated the main theory of delocalized environmental risk. Due to the heavily intertwined relationships between the cities, much of the community information is co-produced from different perspectives. For some, like Devin, this means thinking of a river in multiple ways throughout their life. For others, the co-produced nature of information is inadequate, and their constant intermingling leads to the psychological distancing from certain aspects of the community and an omission of the river from their minds. This research provided an opportunity to uncover this finding that the New River goes unknown and gives the community a chance to reframe their understanding of life in the Imperial Valley. These theories allowed me to understand how the population I observed got to such high levels of environmental numbness and became so detached from local issues. By amplifying the New River story of environmental disaster and advocating for the community members who know so little of their situation, the decline of the New River may cease. And rather than being known as one of the worst environmental disasters in history, the narrative may switch to become an ecological success story. I would like to thank Dr. Robert Lemelson and his foundation for funding my research, Dr. Monica Smith for advising me throughout the 2 years of the program, Professor Garo, Professor Lloyd, Professor Toyota, and Professor Lejour for their professional guidance during the course of my research, and finally, the Anthropology Department for the support and opportunity to conduct this research project.